The Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is now in the books, Ronda Rousey is now officially a WWE superstar, and with two big matches on the line to determine the WrestleMania outcomes for the men and the women, there's seemingly a lot to take away from this show. Is it any good? Well, that's what this review is here to find out on this pay-per-view review edition of Wrestling Rant. A quick word of warning, if I'm not as loud or as enthusiastic as I normally am during these reviews, my throat feels like garbage because the cold weather in the UK at the moment is a bastard and I don't want to strain it more than I have to. So if you end up having to turn up the volume on your computers just to hear me speak, that is why, and I apologise for any inconvenience that may cause. Then again, I don't apologise for any inconvenience the pay-per-view causes, because we all suffered through the same thing in the course of last night. Anyway, let's get on to the first contest then, shall we? And that does not include a pre-show match that was won by Gallows and Anderson, because obviously they were going to beat The Miz Taraj. You know how this works by now. The match doesn't get rated. If you don't know this, that's just how it goes. As the Raw Women's Championship was put on the line in an Elimination Chamber for the first time, with Alexa Bliss entering last, getting the luck of the draw by getting through to the end, defeating Sasha Banks to retain the championship off a top rope DDT after 29 minutes and 37 seconds. Now this was the best match of the night. 3.25 stars is what I'm going to give this one, and that should be a testament to the rest of the show's quality based on that. Now if you don't believe that this match could achieve this rating, then you and I are watching completely different shows last night. Definitely. The women whipped the men's ass in match quality, especially when it came to this, and you'll see why when I get to the main event match later. The fact is, well, there was a lot going on in here. We had psychology of teams fracturing and working together, Bliss playing the frightened deer in the headlights, she had aggressive and cunning character that she has nailed down to a T, it had risks taken with moves that you wouldn't really expect. I mean, a woman jumping off the damn pod in Mickie James, and that bloody moonsault going into a bank statement. Freaking awesome as far as I am concerned. And in all fairness, I felt that this was a predictable match, but overall good, and the pace fluctuated and had a lot of fluidity in its execution, and the crowd, they were into pretty much all of it, apart from a few periods at the start where Bayley's beating at the hands of Sonya Deville did not go over well with some people. Honestly, I would have preferred Bayley to be the one who lasted to the end, but the match did its job in getting me hyped up and excited and made me realise that athleticism and the women in the modern day WWE is ridiculously in tandem. And honestly, I felt that this could have been bettered with some body selling and going on a tad longer to emphasise the drama in certain areas, but that's not much to shout about in the negative department. 3.25 stars is pretty solid, and it shows that, well, the women are delivering on pay-per-view. It was a good match that really amped up the crowd and got this pay-per-view going strong, and not just that, it almost matched up with the Rumble match last time round, and it's equaling the Sasha Banks-Charlotte quadrilogy of pay-per-view matches in quality on star rating alone. So, the fact is, this pay-per-view could not have started hotter. Alexa Bliss looked good, most of the women in there did in spades, and of course, it was a really hot way to start the night. Well done, guys. Not to mention the promo that Alexa cut afterwards, which I hated because it was so cookie-cutter face that it was nauseating, to then hear her tackle a typical heel promo to cut them down when they thought they were being good. Seriously, if you chant "you deserve it" at a heel champion, yeah, you're subverting the narrative tropes of professional wrestling, but you're also being a dick. I am happy that Alexa cut you guys in Las Vegas down. It was bloody worth seeing. That being said, while I am very happy that this match got a 3.25 star rating, it's downhill from there, as the Raw Tag Team Championship match followed up after that. Logically it had to, because nothing else could, as the Bar defended against Titus Worldwide off a springboard clothesline white nose combo after 10 minutes and 1 second. Yes, 1 extra bloody second, people. Crazy, isn't it? Now, this match for me was nothing. 1/4 star. 1/4 star for a tag team match that, if it was fresh, and had a best 50-50 booking attitude to it, where the Titus Worldwide win came through and then the Bar won the next week to build up some tension, would be great, because in this match would have all the intensity and all of the intrigue that I could muster. However, the fact that these two teams had wrestled 4 times in the last month alone should be an indication of where my enthusiasm went. This matchup had no real drama or chemistry because it was executed in the wrong way. I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't seen it as many times as I had, but also I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it was basically done the way that the best match they had on Raw was, by making Titus Worldwide look aggressive and incredibly domineering in their ability to try and win the damn championships. That's what we needed here, rather than the rest hold working of a face in peril for psychology purposes. The methodical mat game is not what you needed when you have two teams who could run around and cause all causes of pain through any myriad of ways. And the fact is, the prior matches were hit or miss, but when they hit hard, they did. But this was cut and dry, paint by the numbers, and honestly, the crowd were as tepid as they were throughout the entire evening, as they were not ready for this honestly slow as hell and slow burning matchup for a 10-minute tag match that many people wouldn't have cared about to begin with. But like I've said, we've seen it so many times, there are not many positives I can take from it. Sure, there was a steady pace once it got going, away from the rest hold area, and the minimal face peril psychology working wonders for Titus's hot tag, but the fact is, if it wasn't for those things, it would have been getting a 0. That's how close it was, but a quarter of a star is applicable. I just feel okay, it filled the time between the next match and the previous one, and it replicated its quality as such, but honestly, it could have been better. It really could have. I mean, sure, they have no other face tag teams, so they had to put this match on the card. That's okay, I understand that. They could have at least not shoved the match in our face for a month before freaking sticking it on pay-per-view, because that's not a way to build intrigue to a title match. Good God almighty, this was not good at all. We next follow up with another women's match, but this time with complications regarding the WrestleMania women's main event. This SmackDown will not be, despite potentially what Asuka could say, after beating Nia Jax's WrestleMania dreams into the dust after a roll-up. After 8 minutes and 12 seconds, but it was the irresistible Force who came out with a good last laugh as she rammed the Empress of Tomorrow into the barricade with such force that even the crowd couldn't believe it. Oh yes. Now this match, I have to admit, was a lot shorter than I was expecting, but just as I foretold, it made Jax look fantastic, because that's exactly what the match needed to do, and it gets 2.25 stars for its efforts. Now, Asuka got manhandled, but utilised the superb agility that she has, along with the in-ring awareness, to come out with the victory that many wily champions do all the time, as the psychology was minimal enough, but thanks to the infrequent momentum shifts, still served its purpose, as Asuka would not go down without a single fight. The pace was solid and quick throughout, but the one-sided nature of most of its short run time muted the positive effects of what could have been, but the crowd was surprisingly into it, and honestly, it had enough room to maneuver and do what it needed to do with this David and Goliath encounter, and they amplified that and made it pretty nice to hear. Unfortunately, I would have liked it to go on a little longer, and I wish they didn't go and fight on Raw in the build up to this to make it feel more fresh. Because again, if you have 3 hours of Raw, you're not going to repeat matches that are on the bloody pay-per-view. However, 2.25 stars for a match that, honestly, most of the time in 8 minutes would never even reach this level is a very good thing to say, because once again, the women know what the hell they're doing. And that's fantastic. But like I said, I wish it was longer, because what they had going here, it was building up into something quite fun, and I was thinking, okay, this is awesome, chance are warranted, I'm enjoying this, and then it ended just as quickly as it managed to enter my brain that this was actually proving me in good stead to be a quality match. I just again hope that they don't rush Asuka's matches in the future, because okay, she can win via this roll-up mentality, but if she just does it too often, it'll make her victories not look as impressive as they should be. That's just my opinion, though. 2.25 star from a Nia Jax match, though. I'll give her plaudits for that. One of the best matches she's had in WWE to this point. And like I said, in the predictions on this past week's Wrestling Rant, she needed to look fantastic in defeat, and boy, did she. So I can't complain there. However, what I can complain about is the follow-up, the Deleter versus the Eater of Worlds. Oh, hell to the yes, as Matt Hardy defeated Bray Wyatt off a twist of fate in 9 minutes and 56 seconds. However, this quarter star of contests is not really damaged by the in-ring ability, it's by the crowd. The Las Vegas crowd, somebody threw a beach ball into the crowd, had it removed, which then caused the fans to completely disassociate themselves from the contest at hand, chant for Rusev Day amongst other things, beach ball mania, and of course, doing a Mexican wave. Do you know what was annoying? The crowd were actually into the contest. So, the fact that they then phased out of it and were trolling everybody like the happy smarts that they are annoyed the ever-loving crap out of me. And it really annoyed me because this match was fun, but not in a match quality sense. The idea of Matt subverting the tropes by getting inside Bray's head and disappearing when he arrived in the ring and jumping him from behind and avoiding all of his typical spooky moves was really nice. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt were really putting themselves into this match, but of course, if the crowd don't care, then there's no reason for me to do so because it just takes you out of the moment. And the one thing that annoys me is the crowd were into it. They were clapping along to Matt, they were chanting for Bray to fight back, because you had the Fireflies versus the, whatever the hell Matt Hardy's Woken followers are. There we go, Woken Warriors. I bloody remembered it, as I remembered to forget the damn thing. Honestly, those guys were dueling, so it created like that cult atmosphere. You needed that. The match had something, it had aggression and intensity, it was building to something, but again, you don't really notice that when the crowd are just basically being trolls. And that's not good. It was entertaining and they tried, but too bad the crowd ruined the contest that could have gotten 1 star plus if they were given the ability and focus that the Las Vegas crowd needed to give them. Because I seriously would not have given this a quarter of a star if it just didn't fall flat on its face after a bloody beach ball incident. Las Vegas, crowds around the world, do not bring a beach ball to wrestling. You are there to watch the wrestling. I don't care how much you paid for your tickets or what you believe you are entitled to do as fans of the product. You are there to watch bloody wrestling. Do yourself justice and watch what you are being paid for. But a quarter of a star for a match that many people thought wasn't going to be anything special is warranted and understandable to where it's not much of a surprise. But the fact that I was willing to give it a higher rating because of what qualities the match brought to itself shows that, you know what, it could have been much better. I'm just irritated that I had to do this. That being said, we have to go on to something that a lot of people were anticipating. And it's not a match, but at least it's something important. The Ronda Rousey contract signing. So I have to touch on this because many were quick to sing Ronda's praises once she came into the ring and wanted to sign her contract. However, the minute she opened her mouth, the crowd turned on her and crapped on her. Loud and very aggressively. And I've got to admit, Las Vegas, I know that you meant to throw bets out of the window in your town, but whew, you guys made that segment very uncomfortable. Not just for me, but also for everyone else. Now I know you're saying to me, well actually Ronda was pretty rubbish on the mic. She was. She delivered a meek, clumsy and awkward promo. The fact is, I had to think about it this way, right? The moment of being live on camera in front of an audience that is fervent for your arrival is going to be very difficult for anyone to take if you've never done it before. The situation overwhelmed Ronda, and it came across as such, and also having to adapt to a scripted promo rather than spitting fire on a live mic is always going to be difficult, while also having to rely on the cues of much more seasoned professionals to get it through. It was going to be clunky, it was going to be awkward, and people, honestly, including myself, should have expected it. I'm going to let it slide because it is a thing that many people would struggle with. If you were put out there having had very little experience in promo cutting with scripted promos in hand or head, you would struggle. You would fluster your lines. You'd get overwhelmed by the chants because you would be amazed at how many people would receive you. And that's the thing. It's understandable to a degree. I can let it slide even more so because outside of that mic work, Her biggest strengths were amplified. She has a badass character with natural character selling and intensity to basically highlight the character's beautiful usage. She can attack people, she has a stare of all hell, and she can sell a slap to the face and make you fear for the other wrestler's life in the process. That's what the character is there to do. And again, I can let the bad mic work slide. That can improve over time. That can involve the fact that if she's in feuds where she doesn't even need to speak, that's fine by me. If she gets Paul Heyman as an advocate, again, that makes it better. That's not a slang against her, because it's highlighting the purpose. She has the ability to do things right. The character, the story ability, and everything else in between is there. If the only problem I have is the combination of her mouth and memory coming through together and producing that, I have no issues with that. Over time, we need to ensure that we can rely on her strengths, but I'll give Kurt Angle some credit, because he made that segment. I feared for his life, and then subsequently Triple H and Stephanie's, knowing they were going to get their ass handed to them by Ronda Rousey. The segment ended fantastically after starting quite poorly indeed, but again, I can let it slide. It's Ronda's first attempt in the rodeo. She's going to have these teething problems. People should have expected that. She's a legit athlete going into the magical, fantastical world of WWE. If you thought she was going to hit the ball out of the park first time running, you don't know how ridiculous this thing can be. Again, being overwhelmed by the situation will logically come through with these results, but I can let it slide because the rest of the promo and her contributions to it were great. Because no one slams Triple H through a table with such ease and makes it look fantastic and then takes a slap from Miss Lady Bowles herself and highlights the anger with perfection. That's the thing. The mic work needs ability to work with. You need to be able to work on that and make it better. But Ronda, everything else is there. You just need to show WWE to highlight the strengths you have. Because if you can, it's going to be fun to see the build up to WrestleMania and what you're involved in with. It's going to be nice. I know that for sure. Now, we finally reach the main event of the evening. It's a pretty short card on this pay-per-view. Logically, the men's Elimination Chamber matchup where Roman Reigns predictably won, beating Braun Strowman after the Monster Among Men eliminated every single guy in it. Except for the big dog, obviously, following a spear and 40 minutes and 12 seconds of the most tepid action in what was hands down the most boring Elimination Chamber match, and probably the most boring match period that I have seen in quite some time. Now, this is going to be getting a half-a-star rating. Now, some of you may think that's really harsh, but when I tell you that for the first 15 minutes, no man utilised the chamber walls or pod as a weapon. Yeah, the in-ring work was highly athletic, but lacked in intensity and retention of crowd, meaning that outside of Strowman's shocking dominance, they knew where this match was going, they knew where it was going to be, and they just sat on their hands and didn't care. Then again, there wasn't much going on in the match to really make them pop anyway. That's a massive, massive problem. That being said though, I have no problem with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, as I've said before. The match could be good. Their WrestleMania 31 bout got a 4-star rating from me. I have a lot of expectations going into what that match can bring. But the way that the big dog won was incredibly, incredibly underwhelming. Because it undermined Braun Strowman's achievement. He eliminated 5 people. On top of that, he did so with aplomb, kicking out of finisher after finisher after finisher, and had inhuman strength and endurance. Yet one spear and a couple of Superman punches ends it. Really? Roman should have been feeling as battered as Strowman was. It just didn't make any sense, and it acted to the rushed nature of a very long match. It started out slow and incredibly plodding, so I just couldn't get into it, and it ended as rushed as it could have. I don't understand why that's possible, and it was surprisingly ill-advised and not pragmatic in the slightest. Because, okay, it wasn't a burial like many said, because who the hell leaves an elimination chamber with 5 eliminations and gets considered a burial? Strowman is a star, and I would have rather have seen him built at WrestleMania rather than seeing Roman main event for the 4th Mania in a row. We all understand that. But the fact is, this match, outside of Strowman's insanity and the Rollins frog splash and the psychology of Rollins and Reigns trying to take down Strowman together, was nothing. This was a 40-minute match that went absolutely nowhere. It did its job in having Roman Reigns win on the night and also have Strowman look incredible, but that was all we got from a match that lasted longer than the original Elimination Chamber. Yeah, I'm not happy with this at all. The crowd aren't going to like the main event of this year's WrestleMania because honestly it's not going to be AJ versus Shinsuke, and I want that to be the main event for obvious reasons. But I'm going to say this right now. The match can still be good, in my honest opinion. This, however, was as lazy, tired, and uneventful as you can get. And the fact is, it gets half a star because it was bad. It was bad. There was no psychology apart from a few minuscule moments. The crowd were on their hands. The move variety was a little bit of sprinkling light. The pacing was utterly, utterly dreadful. And my enjoyment was in the toilet. The fact that it didn't get a 0 is fanciful for its own liking. And the fact is, it was only half a star away from the worst chamber match ever, the Intercontinental Championship one from 2015. It wasn't as bad as that, but my god was it close. And it proves that the gauntlet match that we saw last week sucked all of the drama and energy out of this one, because we saw something utterly fantastic and surprising to where this became a formality and no one gave a crap. With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, 40 minutes of that happening ends this on a very sour note. And it means I am very aggrieved going into my final thoughts on this show, because I'm going to say this right now. This was not a very good show at all. That statement is amplified because I went into this show with muted expectations, believing that, okay, the chamber matches can work their magic and go through to make this pay-per-view somewhat fine, because the other matches on the card that weren't inside the chamber were a bit flat, logically. However, what I got was a night that didn't raise my expectations very high, as I had to sit through some very bland wrestling, which only got some generous and very welcome feminine sprinkles to make it palatable. The Raw women killed it on Sunday. There was no question about that, and they delivered decent to good match quality, which is brilliant, because the men failed to show up and gave everything they could with very subpar, monotonous and boring bouts in contrast. And they did very little to get my pot anywhere higher than a very, very minimal simmer. Honestly, the show gradually dragged itself down as the crowd didn't care, tried to find their own entertainment, only damaging it ever more as the main event didn't live up to expectations, and Ronda Rousey was given an unfairly hostile welcome despite highlighting her ability by making the segment end as more amazingly as it did when it started. That's the thing. This show was one that really ran out of steam. You have a gauntlet match on the week before, which has more intensity and more storytelling. The whole night just felt like it was run-of-the-mill, going through the motions. It didn't really do anything for me. It lacked surprise, intrigue, and excitement for most of its duration. It was so predictable. In fact, the only result I got wrong on the predictions front was the main event, because I stupidly went for Braun Strowman. I should have gone for Roman, because everyone else was going for Roman, but I wanted to be special. Unfortunately, my frustration is more abound because I had to sit through a night where nothing stood out, outside of Ronda Rousey's moment of glory, of course, but that should say a lot. The matches were mostly appalling, apart from a couple which were okay to good. But on my rating scale, that's not good. This pay-per-view had all of its eggs in 2 baskets. And 2 chamber-sized baskets, to say the least. One, though, managed to hatch into a nice, healthy chick, but the other turned into an undercooked, balut abortion of a showcase. And this chamber pay-per-view makes me realise that, you know what? Staying up late to watch and analyse wrestling sometimes really isn't worth it, because this pay-per-view did not live up to the hype and felt like a waste of my time despite what good they put out. A 5-match card should not have 3 of its matches go below half a star. That is appalling, that is ridiculous, and I don't like it in the slightest. Ladies and gentlemen, the Raw women saved this show from bombing immensely. And without you, amazing athletic women, I don't know where this show would have gone. It could have rated a 1.5 out of 10 if I wanted to be that good. It could have even gotten less than a 1 because it was that poor, even though there were no zeros on offer here. This show was good for female wrestling in WWE, but outside of that, it stunk up the place more than a refuse plant in the Sahara. God damn it. Ladies and gentlemen, Elimination Chamber 2018 scores a 2.5 out of 10. I could be a lot crueler, because those women's matches were pretty good. Unfortunately, they lifted a show which would have probably gotten 1.5 or less into seemingly positive equity. This sounds like a good thing, but no. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if I were to tell you that Battleground last year got a 1.5 or 1.25, you should see then how far a pay-per-view card can tumble. Logically, when you have two above or reasonably around average matches to buoy up a floating carcass of shit, you're going to do it properly. Unfortunately, as you can see, after the Rumble getting a 6 out of 10, I put my expectations way too high that the show would try to replicate it. No, they want to get to WrestleMania, and we still have another pay-per-view to go, which may end up reaching the same bloody conclusion. Oh god, I mean, I'm looking forward to WrestleMania as much as the next person, but WWE, you have pay-per-views to get through. Don't just throw them by the wayside, at least make them interesting, for God's sake. But I know that ain't gonna happen. This is a sign that Fastlane may do worse. And I am not looking forward to reviewing that show. Oh God almighty, this is not good. But, that being said, I've made this video, the review is therefore finished, and I can rest easy knowing that Raw was pretty solid, I hope, because I'm actually recording this before Monday Night Raw happens, which is saying something. And when Wrestling Rant comes through this upcoming week, hopefully I'll have a good show to report on both brands, let alone just one, but you can look forward to that and wait for it and see how it goes through by clicking the subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything. The fact is, I wish I'd missed this show, because I had a very restless and very uncomfortable night trying to get to sleep afterwards, because I really wasn't happy with this. Fastlane, you don't have to do much to get better than this. Raw and SmackDown don't have to do much to get better than this. All I'm hoping for is with the upcoming weeks of Wrestling Rant reviews and pay-per-view reviews aplenty, I can watch better wrestling. Well done, Raw's women, but everyone else should be ashamed of yourselves for delivering half-assed performances on a night such as this. And again, WrestleMania has its main event that no one wants to see. Hot diggity daffodil. I have been Freddie Thomas. You've been people watching. This has been the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view review for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.